What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Nazik, and we got another episode of Ask FP. It's a blessing to be able to talk just before people today and just the whole nine, to be alive. It's a beautiful day in Chicago, and you know, it's a blessing, just overall blessing. I don't ever want to be to the point where I can't appreciate the simple blessings in life. And if you're live and able to watch and or listen to me today, you too are blessed, even if you're going through something right now. So just know that. So let's jump into the show. But before I get into that, as many of you know, I've been writing for Bleach Report for a while. I've been writing for Forbes for a shorter period of time, and I've been doing some different types of pieces that I wasn't necessarily able to do with Bleach Report that I've been doing with Forbes, and I'm really enjoying it. I did a piece that was somewhat controversial last week. It was entitled "Steph Curry Deserved to be Suspended for Game 7." It really blew up. I mean, it was crazy how it blew up. Almost 200,000 people read that piece. So that was crazy, right? So I wrote something today, probably not going to be quite as big, but it's a piece on D'Angelo Russell and the Lakers' rumored trade or him rumored to be available via trade. So if you get an opportunity, I want you, if you can, I'm going to probably just go ahead and put that the link into the description, and we're going to go ahead and talk about this young fella right here. I talk about that situation in the article. So take a look at that if you get a chance. If you follow me on Twitter, hopefully you do, at Unique, UNIQUE, Mazik, MAZIQUE. That's how you get involved with Ask FP. It's also how you stay abreast of what I'm doing from a writing standpoint to a video standpoint, even to just the crazy stuff that crosses my mind. So without further ado, let's jump into the question of the week, which has already pretty much been put into the title of this video as usual. And it comes from a consistent Ask FP'er. And he says, his name is Victor Daniel Torres, and he asked, if LeBron James coached in the future, do you think that he would be successful? That's a common thing, actually, because a lot of times, you know, some people automatically think that a great player automatically translates to a great coach. But history tells us otherwise. Very few, there's some exceptions, but very few great players have gone on to be great coaches when they've been given an opportunity. Some might say Bill Russell, but Bill Russell was a player coach, and I mean, obviously that takes a whole different type of skill to do that. But in the traditional style of, I'm not playing, I'm on the bench in a suit and tie, and I'm coaching the team in the traditional sense. You don't find many great players, especially like really good players. Yes, some really good players. Like Doc Rivers was a good player. You know, he was a good player. He wasn't a great player. He was a good player. He's been a great coach. He's been a really good coach. Has a ring. You know, I mean, Isaiah Thomas was, Larry Bird was pretty good, but Magic, it didn't work out. For LeBron, I don't think that LeBron would be a great coach. As a matter of fact, I don't even think LeBron would want to coach. I think LeBron will bypass coaching, probably bypass being a general manager, and he'll go straight into ownership from the beginning. And I think he will want to some degree have a hand in player personnel decisions. But I think, I honestly, for where LeBron will be when he hangs him up, I think he'll be bigger than being a coach. I believe that. But even if he wasn't, I don't see him as being an effective head coach, because superstars oftentimes don't necessarily know how to teach the game, and they don't necessarily know how to motivate others unless they are actively participating. And then sometimes they expect other players that they're coaching to have the same level of commitment that they had. And I think that was what was the issue with Magic. He really had a hard time adjusting to today's players and the way some of those guys behaved, and he had no tolerance for it. And I could see something similar to that happening with LeBron. So I don't think he would be a good coach if he became, if he had an opportunity to be. I don't think it's at all about lack of basketball knowledge or anything to that effect. I just think that, it's really difficult for superstars to turn around and coach the game. All right, next question comes from Ty Bud, and he says, you're a Chi-Town guy, meaning me, as I am. A Bulls guy, meaning me, as I am. He said, but the Bulls hate Zeke, meaning Isaiah Thomas. And Zeke is a Chi-Town native. So how do you feel about Zeke? Well, let me kind of shake that up a little bit, okay? The Chicago Bulls dislike for Isaiah Thomas, and I don't know if that's an organization-wide dislike, but the issue with Isaiah Thomas with the Bulls is rooted from the Detroit Pistons days. That was a huge rivalry. The Bulls finally got past Isaiah and the Pistons, and, we all know the story about Isaiah walking out without shaking hands, blah, 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 blah. So I think that's where that comes from. I think that also spills into the city itself. I'll say this. I think it's a real shame. Isaiah Thomas is not one of my favorite players, okay? And let me define what that means. In order for somebody to be my favorite player, yes, it's about him being good, of course, but it's not just about if you're the best or not. I have to have some kind of connection with the player. Like Derrick Rose grew up around me. He, I'm older than him, but he grew up in the same neighborhood as I grew up in. Somewhat, it's just like a community over, one community over from mine. But it's something else. I feel like he's an underdog, and I tend to, like I think I said to you guys in the last episode, I tend to gravitate towards the underdogs. Isaiah's from the west side of Chicago. I'm from the south side. Rose is from the south side. Nick Anderson was from the south side. Who else? I can't even think of anybody on the top of my head who else is from the south side. Anthony Davis, Jaleel Okafor. Those are south side guys. People like Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre. Those guys, that's the west side. Even Kevin Garnett, who only spent one year in Chicago, Farragut, which is where he went, it's on the west side. So for me personally, I don't have the same connection to the west side players as I do the south side players. I still definitely represent Chicago. Dwayne Wade is south suburbs, but which is not, I would have more connection to a player from the south suburbs than I would have someone from the west side, which, like Chicago is still Chicago, but it's still kind of different, right? Isaiah's not a likable guy, just anyway. Kind of sort of just doesn't come off as a really super cuddly kind of dude anyway. But I tell you what, in my personal opinion, he's the greatest player in NBA history, 6'2" and under. And I've said that time and time again to several people. And the first person people want to mention is, what about Iverson? What about Iverson? I mean, Iverson was absolutely great, and he's a Hall of Famer. He just went into the Hall of Fame. But what Isaiah accomplished was what Iverson could have accomplished if he had changed his game a bit. Because Isaiah could score just like Iverson. Perhaps you could make the argument it was even better. And the reason being is because Isaiah could shoot the ball from the outside. Isaiah had a pure jump shot, and he had it off the dribble. He had it. I'm not calling him Steph as a shooter, but Isaiah could really shoot the basketball. If you want to know from a pure offensive standpoint, taking the passing out, just the scoring, If you want to know whose game Kyrie Irving's most looks like to me, when you're just talking about off the dribble, creating space for jump shots, driving the lane, I'd say Isaiah. Isaiah could score like crazy when he needed to, but he also was one of the best at running an offense. And I think that's where and he was a better on-ball defender than Iverson. Iverson led the league in steals, but that was passing lane defense. Talking about on-the-ball defense, Zeke was a better on-the-ball defender. So he gets mad respect for me as a player, but that like I said, that doesn't necessarily connect to me with me as you being my favorite player. So I got respect for him. I acknowledge the Chicago connection, but he's not my favorite player. So that's where we go with that. All right. The next question comes from one of my new favorites on, I got a lot of favorites on Ask FP, but Clark Kent Allen is one of my new favorites. And he says, do you see any up-and-coming fighters that could bring the popularity of boxing back up? Yeah, you know, man, boxing's a funny sport, man. Obviously, anybody who follows me on Ask FP, you guys know I love boxing. It's one of my favorite sports. It's right there with basketball, man. And you know, I love it. You know, if I had to rank my sports, it would be really difficult, man, to even say, you know, basketball, football, baseball, and boxing are like all tied. You know what I'm saying? They're all just tied for number one for me, right? So, honestly, man, in order for boxing's popularity to pick back up, you're going to have an American heavyweight. You're going to have a heavyweight champion that Americans can relate to. Deontay Wilder has to do more first. He hasn't solidified himself as the man. If he unifies the titles, which I think is a long shot, not only because there's still some questions about how good he is, but if I think it's a long shot because that's just not the way boxing works anymore, man. You know, guys just don't even appear to care about unifying titles anymore, right? So because of that, it's hard to say, well, he's going to this or he's going to that. So because people don't seem to care about it, I mean, who's to say that he's gonna, that's something that'll happen at any point, or that he'll even make that a goal. So I don't know if that'll ever happen. But that's what Wilder needs to do. Now, I think Anthony Joshua has a better chance of really helping to elevate the sport because he's more marketable than Deontay Wilder. He's a humongous, muscle-bound guy, good-looking guy, strong as an ox. He's a former Olympian. Now he is from London, England, but obviously he speaks English, and so he's somebody that you can somewhat connect with, and he's more personable and more he's got a little more swag than, say, Lennox Lewis. Because Lennox Lewis, there was a disconnect between the American audience and Lennox Lewis for sure, and I think it was about personality. But I don't think that'll be the issue with AJ. AJ is a beast. He fights Dominic Breazeale coming up. It's not this weekend. I think it's next weekend. And it's going to be, Dominic Breazeale is a Brazil, I believe is how you pronounce it. He is a big-time puncher. His defense is very, very questionable. He's actually a former college football quarterback. But he's a big guy, decent athlete. He can take a shot, and he certainly can deliver one. I believe he's 6'8". But he is very flabby in the body. I have questions about his stamina. I definitely have questions about his defense. But he is a decent challenge for AJ because of his size. And it's definitely not a trash first defense for AJ. But I think if Anthony Joshua, who's already the IBF champion, he knocked out Charles Martin to win that. If he wins another title, unifies another aspect of the heavyweight title, I believe he's really on his way. to being a worldwide superstar, not somebody that just most people know in England, which I think is where it is right now. All right, the next question comes from Ty Bud, and he says, will Ayesha Curry's recent expressed frustrations cause her some shade in the public? He says she was the public trophy wife. Now, I don't know about all that, Ty, but what I will say, and if anybody follows me on Twitter, I'm sure they probably saw some of my comments. And if you don't know what happened, Ayesha Curry, during the Game 6 loss in Cleveland for the Golden State Warriors, she went on a rant on Twitter. She says the NBA was rigged and blah, 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 blah. Just the same stupid stuff you hear people say who really don't know anything about basketball. I'm just going to be totally honest with you. Anybody who uses the excuses about the NBA being rigged and it's fixed to make it go longer, that is like, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never in my life heard a well-informed person say or use that to explain what's happening in the NBA Finals. It's always an ultra casual fan that is in and out of the game throughout the year. It's never a hardcore fan, because a hardcore fan or an analyst or a person that's a professional never says that, because they know how ridiculous it is. Do you realize what it would take to fix an NBA game to the point where you're extending a series and planning for it to be this and that? Now, point shaving is something different. Referee Tim Donaghy, who got into some trouble a few years back, that's what he was doing. He was the people in organized crime were coming to him and saying, hey, the line is 5. I'm betting that it's over, that they win by more than 5. I need you call a couple extra fouls here and there to make sure that this game, that they win by 6 or 7 as opposed to 5. Okay, that's a big difference from saying this team's going to lose today and this series is going to go longer than it is. You're going to need more than just a referee to be involved with that. So at that point, you're going to need players. You're going to probably need coaches, because at some point you're looking around. So if LeBron is the only one that's doing this, which I'm just throwing this out there because he's the star of the finals, then at some point, does Ty Lue say, okay, LeBron, why are you throwing the ball out of bounds 2 consecutive trips? That you don't even do that. What are you doing? Do I need to sit you down to whatever? So you sit him down, somebody comes in and goes on a run, what happens? And then think about it like this. The person that's approaching LeBron or whoever these people are that's fixing this series, what are they approaching him with? LeBron is in the top 10 on the Forbes money list right now, y'all. What are they offering LeBron that is so enticing to him that he's already making $77 million a year, but you're going to come and give him more than that to fix a game? That doesn't move the needle for him. That doesn't make any sense. And so some people say, oh, well, if they tell you they're going to kill your family. So you mean to tell me that you believe that somebody could come to LeBron, who's making $77 million a year, and say, if you don't fix this game, then we're going to kill somebody in your family, and he wouldn't have the means or resources to make sure that he was protected? I mean, if that was said to him and he made that known to anybody in the NBA, the level of security for that building and for him and for all of those things involved would be so high, it would be crazy. So see, here's the thing. When people say that stuff, it's never a well thought out thing. It's just a thing you throw out there. They got it fixed. They got it fixed. I'm telling you, it's so fixed. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Shut up. I mean, just think about what you're saying. You're saying something absolutely stupid that is totally not thought out. But so many people are used to having what I call living room conversations. And with social media, your living room conversations become public conversations. And now when they become public conversations, everybody sees how stupid it sounds, because that's exactly what that is. It sounds stupid. I mean, it's just totally unrealistic. You're coming to a referee and you're telling him, okay, yeah, so the whole crew or just one ref? I mean, so is the whole crew involved? So the whole officiating crew is involved in this fixing and nobody ever finds out. That's pretty stupid. That's pretty stupid. In this day and age where you can't even pass gas without somebody putting it on Snapchat if you're famous, you can organize an entire conspiracy to fix one of the most viewed television programs of the year. That's what you're saying you can do. Stop it, Ayesha. Just stop it, and stop everybody else who's saying that. Just stop it. But Top Bud is saying, is it going to cause people to throw shade? They already did throw some shade. But here's the thing. She's very young. Well, before I say that, athletes' families really need to stop. They really need to stop. All of this stuff that brings attention to them but puts pressure on the athlete is crazy. Ayesha Curry ain't got to make one jump shot in her whole life. Nobody cares if she makes a jump shot or not. And Steph is a good dude, and Steph's going to protect and honor and back his wife up 100%, which is what he should do. I aspire to be that unconditionally supportive of my wife, because that's what you're supposed to do, and publicly. But in behind closed doors, I'm saying, babe, chill on the Twitter thing. Chill. And if you notice in Game 7, the nature of her tweets drastically changed. And that's because somebody pulled her aside and said, sweetheart, you can't keep doing that. And I'm not just talking about because she's his wife. I wouldn't care if Sheldon Williams is Candace Parker's husband, I believe. He was at some point. I think he still is. He doesn't play anymore, right? So nobody is watching what he does. Candace Parker is the one who plays. If Sheldon Williams is on Twitter while Candace Parker is in the WNBA finals and he's acting a fool and saying stupid stuff, I want him to shut up too. I want him to shut up too, because you are not doing anything but making it harder on your family, because you don't have to answer any of these questions. You're not the person that's mandated to sit in front of the media and to answer all these questions. So, Steph, what do you think about your wife's comments yesterday? She said the NBA is rigged. What do you think about that? Golden State Warriors general managers and ownership group pull you in a room and say, now, Steph, can you please talk to your wife about these tweets is bringing negative information, negative attention on the franchise, and the NBA wants her to stop. Why are you doing that? It's actually a selfish act, because you're drawing attention to yourself on your Twitter account that you have all of these followers. Why? Not because you're cute and you can cook. There's a whole bunch of girls that's cute and that can cook. You got the attention you got it because your husband is the best shooter to ever live. Now let him shoot and you be quiet. And the same thing, like I said, Sheldon Williams, if you doing all of that, what you're doing, and Candace Parker, and you bringing pressure on Candace Parker, shut up. Let her do her thing, bro. And they ain't even talking about if you just the spouse. Reggie Rose. If you saying stuff that Derek has to answer for, hush it up. What are you doing? Just stop it. You know, I feel deeply about that. Could y'all tell? I think very deeply. Y'all don't know what that is. All right, let's move on to the next question. It's from Victor Daniel Torres. And he said, the worst NBA finals of all time. Man, I'm going to tell you, it's easy for me. I didn't look up the year. Sometimes I forget the exact years in the 2000s. For whatever reason, 2000s is blurry to me for like the years. Like I remember the teams that won, but trying to remember the exact year is hard for me. The Spurs Nets series was the worst. I mean, it was bad, man. And I'm going to tell you why it was bad. It was bad first and foremost because everybody knew who was going to win. Nobody thought New Jersey had a chance to beat San Antonio, right? Nobody. Secondly, it was bad because there were no, like Jason Kidd, that team was pretty fairly exciting to watch. But I don't know, it just really lacked pizzazz for me overall, and it was not competitive at all. So that was easy for me. That's the worst finals I can remember. Perhaps there was one at another time. That finals was boo-boo, really bad, not good at all. All right, so let's go to the next question. Another one of my favorite new, relatively new Ask FPers, Derek Dynasty. He says, what does being a father mean to you? Now, I told y'all before, Derek come with that real sometime. You know, he come with that stuff gonna make you cry and all that, you know, hug your dog kind of stuff, you know. But he said, well, you know, what has been a father? Being a father to me means being a protector, a supporter, a listener, somebody who can, you know, you can have fun with, but at the same time, you know, you have to respect. And it's not a respect so much out of fear. It's a respect that is earned because they can see how hard you work and they know how much you love them. You know, being a father to me also it means coming home every night. You know, I always tell people, and some people, you know, depending on what environment you live in, this is not that realistic for them. But in some others, it is. If you're out there doing anything, if you're a father and you're out there doing anything in the streets that will decrease the chances that you're going to come home that night, you're failing in that aspect of being a father. I don't even care if what you out there doing is quote unquote supposedly helping to provide for your family. If it's putting you in harm's way and making it where it's a chance or a higher probability that you're not coming home. And I don't mean on a business trip. I mean on an unwanted trip that you're going away, or the worst case scenario that you're going in the ground. If you're doing something like that, you're failing in that aspect of being a father. So being a father to me is about coming home every night, you know, because being present is very important. Once you're present, you won the first battle just by being present. The second thing is to be active, but being present comes first. So that's what it means to me. All right, let's move on to the next question, which is also from Derek Dynasty, which is a little less serious. Derek says, do you see Team USA being upset this summer? You know, it certainly looks like it's one of those years prime for upset, doesn't it? I mean, when you consider the fact that you got a lot of big name guys that's not going, and I totally understand why from several different standpoints, Zika virus, as well as a lot of these big time guys are at a point in their career where winning championships is the most important aspect for them. And they realize how much wear and tear year-round basketball plays on their body. And so they're starting to trying to preserve themselves. And then also you got guys going into contract seasons, even though from what we understand, Kevin Durant is committed to playing no matter what. Even though he's in a contract again, he's the #1 free agent out there unless LeBron opts out, which we probably will. But I don't know how free of a free agent LeBron really will be. But, you know, so it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. But I think it's going to all come down to coaching and how well the group that goes buys into the coaching. I still think a secondary group from a talent standpoint is talented enough to win, but you have to buy into the system and you have to play the right way. If they play unselfish and they buy into the system, they should still win, but we'll see. All right, the next question. This one comes from Ty Bud, and we're going back to the NBA Finals for this one. And Ty Bud says, who was the best point guard in the NBA Finals this year? Well, Ty, that's the easiest question I done had on Ask FP in about 45 years. Well, it's not been that long, but sometimes it feels like Kyrie Irving was the best point guard in the finals. Clearly, I think Steph got exposed a bit in this final series. To be honest, the last two final series, physical defense. And they weren't even as physical with him as they could have been, because when he drove the lane, he still was allowed to do whatever he wants, with guys just floating by and reaching for the ball. I always wonder why, when Steph drives, why people don't body up against him and force his body to hit their body. You still go for the ball, but it's a chest foul as much as it is arm swinging, reaching, or going for the block foul. That's the type of foul and collision that deters a slider frame guy from going to the basket, unless you're Allen Iverson or somebody who's just going to keep coming either way. But Steph, I don't know if Steph's that guy. And to be honest with you, I thought he showed a lot of mental weakness in this finals. He's got to grow up a bit. You know, he's got to get a little tougher. You know, the outbreak, the crazy thing he did at the end of Game 6 that I think he should have got suspended for. I mean, I know a lot of people say, you know, well, there was other guys who thrown mouthpieces in the past, and all they got was a $25,000 fine, and that's what Steph deserved too. From a precedent standpoint, I do think that was correct, and I think the NBA could hide behind that precedence. But the way I started off that article that I mentioned is this way: on what job in the world can you be at work, get so frustrated that you grab something out of your mouth, throw it at a wall, hit a customer by mistake, and not get fired? So some of y'all listening work in retail, right? You know, I've worked in retail a long time. Various members of my family work in retail. I'm very familiar with it. As a matter of fact, I loved retail. If I wasn't writing, I'd probably be working in retail, because that was my favorite thing that I did. You know, as a retail manager, that was my favorite thing that I did in terms of occupation, right? I liked being a counselor at a group home. I was that too. But yeah, that was my favorite thing I did. So check it out. I'm gonna paint a picture for you, right? And you guys who work in retail right now can really probably relate to this. You at the register, or you at one of the computers checking on some information for a customer. You typing in, and something goes wrong on the computer. You get so mad, you got gum in your mouth, right? You take the gum out of your mouth, and you say, "What in the world? This is some mess." Boom! You fire this gum, right? You fired at an inanimate object off to the side, but the gum you miss, and the gum hit a customer dead off in the eye. The customer's like, "What are you doing?" And you go over to him and, "My bad, dog. I didn't mean to throw it and hit you in the eye with the bubblicious. I didn't mean to do it." So your manager sees you did this. What do you think is going to happen? Essentially, that's exactly what Steph did. Fans are customers. Fans are who pays Steph's salary. That's who pays all of the player's salary. You're at a public place. Playing basketball is a job. It's a very good job, a fun job. It's a job a lot of people wish they had, but it's still a job. Steph was at work. He got so mad at work that he threw something out of his mouth and hit a customer. That's it. We can change it and say, "Oh, it ain't so much like that, because see, he played basketball and he make a lot of money for his boss, and it's like that." Whatever. That's a customer. You're get out of here, man. You can't throw stuff. Say, what? If this was AAU basketball and we saw a kid go off, take a mouthpiece out of his mouth and throw it and hit somebody in the stands, It would be on every Vine, on every YouTube video, and we'd be like, look at this crazy kid. This kid is out of his mind. He just threw a mouthpiece and hit somebody in the face with it. But because it's Steph Curry, now it's like, oh, he was just a little out of man. What? Get out of here, man. You can't, you learn in junior high school basketball, you can't throw your mouthpiece, man. Now, I ain't condemning him to hell or nothing like that. Steph is a good dude, and I know that was totally out of character, right? But that does not mean, and I know he didn't mean to hit the guy, but that does not mean that you go without a severe punishment because you didn't mean it and because you're a nice guy. Nice people that do bad stuff get punished all the time. And my thing is the punishment does not fit the crime or does not fit the infraction because it wasn't a crime necessarily unless the dude wanted to sue him for negligence, which he could have done, but he was a minority owner of the Cavs, so he didn't really need to do that. But still, you can't be doing that, dog. You can't, you can't be doing it, and just stop it. But yeah, Kyrie was the best point guard in the NBA Finals. And I think that he outplayed Steph in almost every single way. Almost every single way. So we'll see. All right, next question comes from my man Tristan. And Tristan says, can Kyrie win a championship as the lead guy? Can Kyrie win a championship as a lead guy? No, he can't. We saw Kyrie as a lead guy all the years he played in Cleveland before LeBron got there. How'd that work out? Not too good, right? Kyrie's an excellent player. And to be honest with you, he needs a player like LeBron next to him. He needs a guy who plays the 2 or the 3 who can function like a point guard because Kyrie is really not a natural point guard. He was never a guy who really created for his other teammates. He doesn't make his teammates better, but singularly, he is doggone near unguardable off the dribble. I mean, off the dribble, the dude is sick with it, man. I mean, the moves he makes off the dribble, I mean, and the funny thing about Kyrie is that he's not that blazing fast. It's not the speed that makes him unguardable. It's the way he attacks angles. It's his handle. His handle is so tight, man, that literally, it's like I go wherever I want to go with this ball, and you don't know where I'm going. And then to top all that off, I am a lights out shooter from deep. So all I need to do is get that much space and to get it off, and you might be in trouble. And I hit him when it's contested too, driving or from the outside. So he is a phenomenal, dynamic scorer. But that's really it. And it was a perfect fit with LeBron in the finals because LeBron's doing everything. He's rebounding, he's distributing, he's scoring as well. He's playing defense. And he needed another guy on his team who was going to be a problem to stop. And that's what Kyrie was. So, but that style of a guy is not going to really be able to be the lead guy. Because whoever is the person that's playing that total all-around game, in my opinion, is the lead guy. So that's that. All right. We got another one, and it comes from Jared Young. And Jared Young says, who do you think Michael Bisping should fight for his first title defense? Now, the word is that he's going to be facing Georges St. Pierre because GSP just announced that he's ready to come back. It's been 3 years, I believe it has been, and he seems to want Bisping. So Pierre is known as arguably the greatest welterweight in history. So that's 170 in MMA, and Bisping is now currently the 185-pound champion. So with GSP being 35 years old, getting up to 185 is probably no problem for him. He's already a muscularly built guy anyway. So as a matter of fact, a weight cut might be a little bit of an issue. But he said that he can fight anybody from 155 to 185, which really sounds kind of crazy. But that's that. Me personally, I think that him fighting Anderson. I think Michael Bisping fighting Anderson Silva would be interesting. I know he just fought him, but I thought Silva won that fight by KO, and I thought there was an issue there. And I thought Silva fought very listless in the 4th and 5th round because the almost KO happened at the end of the 3rd. So I thought that would be interesting. But I think Silva needs to win another fight before he can get that done. So, you know, I mean, I don't know. For whatever reason, Bisping GSP just don't do it for me like that. But whatever. I guess that's the best thing out there right now for Bisping. We've also heard some talk about him taking on Dan Henderson in a rematch. Henderson knocked him out last time, you know. So I don't know, man. It was funny to see Bisping knock out Luke Rocco and shock the world. But now that he's a champion, I can't say I'm all super enthused like, oh, my God, let's find out what's next. It is what it is. Next question also comes from Jared Young, and he says, as a Bulls fan, what are your thoughts on Jimmy Butler trade rumors, and do you want to see him traded? Jimmy Butler trade rumors don't bother me at all. Jimmy fell a little bit out of favor with me this past season, like he cares. But just me personally, I just felt that I didn't like his leadership or lack of leadership. I didn't like him doing some things that I thought were detrimental to the team. I thought it started in the offseason, going to the coach and the media saying that, you know, he could play point guard, which was, I thought, pointless and counterproductive and potentially cause a problem between him and Derek. Tweeting out, "This is my city," which felt like a little backhanded, veiled swipe at Derek. Feels like he does that a lot. Makes a lot of little passive-aggressive types of comments about people, which is kind of lame, in my personal opinion. He has improved more than any player I've ever seen in 30 years of watching, and over 30 years of watching basketball. I've never seen a guy go from where he was to where he is now. So I will give him all the credit and respect in the world for that. But some people feel like you don't trade the best player on your team no matter what. I disagree with that. Jimmy Butler is the best player on a team that's not good enough. So what is that worth? If you're not, I mean, Jahlil Okafor or Nerlens Noel is the best player on the 76ers. Are they untouchable? I mean, you know, if you're not good enough, you got to make changes. So it doesn't matter if you're the best player. If your team isn't good enough, you got to do something to mix some things up, and that could mean dealing your best player. I don't think it's necessary, totally honest, to be necessary. I think him and Derek can play well together if they both buy in to Hoiberg's system and play the system and defend on the other end. But I think Jimmy did not buy in this past season. I think he was disruptive. The offense is about ball movement. So often you saw the ball stick in Jimmy's hands. He gets the ball, puts it behind his back, dips his head, it's isolation time, the whole nine. That's not the way that offense is supposed to work. Jimmy and Derek should both be in the gym right now shooting jump shots. Right now. You know, but as far as a trade, if the Lakers wanted to part with the number 2 pick and D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle, the Bulls should listen and offer up the 4th Jimmy and Taj Gibson, maybe. Yeah. Jimmy and Taj Gibson and maybe a future first-round pick or something to that effect. Yeah, definitely they should listen. As a matter of fact, if the Lakers, and I don't even know, I didn't check the money to see if this works out or not, because it has to work out from a money standpoint. But if the Lakers were to trade the number 2 pick, D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle, to the Bulls for Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, and Doug McDermott, the Bulls better do that, in my opinion. The Bulls better do that. Because Brandon Ingram, I think, is going to be a star. I still think Ben Simmons is the man in this draft. But Brandon Ingram, I believe, is going to be a star. I think he's going to be a 20-plus point game scorer for like a long time. So yeah, I do that. I absolutely do that. All right, so let's see here. I got this last question left, and it comes from my man, Simon Torvay Sunland. And he says, obviously, the players will be the center of attention after the finals. But what did you make of the coaching duel? I think that's a really good question, Mr. Sunland. And for me personally, I thought both coaches had their moments, good and bad. I thought that Ty Lue, a few times I felt his team wasn't prepared defensively for some switches out of timeouts, and for an entire half in game. I want to say I think it was game 4. They looked totally unprepared defensively in the second half. Open shooters left and right. Open shooters left and right. Even in game 7, when Draymond Green was shooting flames from 3, I thought that they did not make the adjustments to take that shot away until we got to maybe the end part of the third quarter when they started staying with Draymond off of those switches. So I thought that was some late recognition. And you don't know for sure if that has to fall on the coach or on the players for not executing. But I thought that was some late recognition. But at the same token, I thought he simplified things in a way that I felt helped his team win by consistently running a simple pick and roll that took advantage of Steph Curry's inability to guard anybody for Cleveland. Anybody. So, and I thought that was, it may seem simple, but I thought it was a very smart approach. It frustrated Curry on both ends of the floor. I think it affected his shot. I think it helped lead to the meltdown in game 6 and helped lead to the poor, horrible shooting performance he had in game 7. So I thought that was huge. As far as Steve Kerr, I felt that they should have trapped LeBron more. And I don't think that they did that enough, because I don't think I think you need to trap LeBron. And in my opinion, the only guy who proved himself that you couldn't trap off of him was Kyrie. I would have been sending a trap off of just about anybody else's eyes, short of leaving a guy wide open under the basket. I would have been trapping off of just about anybody else except for Kyrie Irving to take the ball out of LeBron's hands. And that didn't happen. But I also thought that, like I mentioned, those adjustments that Kerr made to move players around to get open shots out of timeouts and in the second half of game 4, I thought was excellent. But overall, I don't think I can say coaching won this series or lost this series. LeBron won this series, and the Cavaliers team defense won this series. Kyrie Irving helped win this series. That's what won it. And because I think that's part of the reason Steph didn't play so well. It's guarding Kyrie on the other end, people consistently bodying up on Curry on the perimeter, going at him on the other end. That was huge. That was huge. Draymond Green getting suspended for game 5 helped win this series. So I don't think any of that necessarily is about the coaches, though. So, but that's it. That's what I got for you guys today on Ask FP. I do appreciate everybody that took out their time to watch this episode. I hope we'll definitely be back next week, barring some issue, or as my mom used to say, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. But I appreciate y'all watching. God bless. Peace.